G'day everyone, kia ora. Welcome to These Guys Got Next, our NBA basketball podcast where we dissect the NBA and deliver our takes off the bench. I'm Elijah Faafew, he's Ravindu Pathirana. Ravi, I check in with you on how you're doing, but have you heard about the hottest new track that's hit the airwaves, Jello Ball, Tweaker? What are your thoughts on that whole thing? He's taken the hip hop scene by storm.
Hip hop scene and the NBA scene, man. Yeah, it's definitely been added to the rotation, and it's part of my gym playlist. So yeah, I've been definitely going into it.
What are you doing while that song is playing? What kind of machine are you on that gets you in the mood when
It's
Jello's?
it's more so trying to grow my little chicken legs, just trying to get the leg press going. So that's need to where the biggest push comes in. So that's got to swoop in that corner.
Whoa, whoa. Okay, well that was like the most thing we're ever going to do on this podcast. So appreciate
You'd
that
hope.
while you can. But hey, that was our Jello mention. We got that out of the way. A whole lot that's happened in the NBA, including the game of the week, possibly the game of the season. Cleveland Cavaliers against the Oklahoma City Thunder in Cleveland. The number one offense against the number one defense, and it lived up to expectations. That's all I could say. The Thunder, leading up to that Cavs matchup, they pretty much ran the Eastern Conference gauntlet. They went up against the Knicks and the Celtics as sort of a warm up for the Cavs. Briefly want to touch on that Celtics game. The Celtics scored 65 in the first half against the Thunder, and then the Thunder just turned it up defensively and kept them to just 27 in the second half, which is an outstanding display of defense. And Jaylen Brown scored 21 in the first half and then was held to 0 in the second. And they pretty much they switched Lou Dort onto Jaylen Brown. Brown got put into the torture chamber, and it was an amazing defensive performance from the Thunder. But in terms of the Cavs Thunder game, what stood out to you about that matchup, and I guess what led to Cleveland taking out that first round?
I think the biggest thing that stood out to me is the absence of Chet Holmgren for the Thunder because Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley performed as the Twin Towers. So unfortunately, the Thunder didn't have that height to match. It was pretty evident in, I guess, the last 2 minutes of the game, especially when Jarrett Allen was shooting a pair of free throws late in the game, and yeah, Evan Mobley just had a tip in that ended up with another position for the Cavs. So I think just Chet Holmgren's presence could have been enough for the Thunder to get away with the win. But funny you say, I don't think I've ever heard in a sentence that any team has used the Celtics, especially with what they're doing this season, as a warm up game for the Cavs. Like
I don't think we haven't really touched on this, but the Celtics, especially during the break, they lost quite a few games, or at least more than they usually do. And it's
yeah.
gotten to a point where I feel like the Cavs maybe haven't overtaken the Celtics, but they're definitely on the same level, I feel like, from what they've shown this season. But I'll let you carry on.
No, I think that's pretty much what I was trying to say in terms of the Twin Towers, just missing that height in the paint. Like Isaiah Hartenstein had, he was just two triple assists short of a triple double, so he was doing his thing. But unfortunately, Jarrett Allen of all people stepped up because you'd expect one of the big three of Mobley, Garland, or Mitchell to step up. But like I'll let you touch on this shortly. And Mitchell was just in the hurt locker or the Wallace locker this time. So yeah, so it's really good to see those the Thunder get up. Oh, sorry, the Cavs get up rather in the absence of Chet Holmgren.
I think we forget that, we talk about the big three in Cleveland. It's still a big four. Like Jarrett Allen's still been there, and he's still been providing with boards and the occasional blocks where he can. But I think this game really stood out because it showed the strengths of Mobley and Jarrett Allen playing together. The one thing I was impressed by was the number of assists that they both put up together. They put up 13 combined, and it wasn't just as if Mobley put up like 9 or 10 and then Jarrett only put up 4. Like it was 7 and 6. It was quite even. So I think they definitely showed their playmaking strengths in the interior, and that's going to help out this Cavs side for the rest of the season. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 points, standard performance from him. Did go 1 from 6 from deep. Jalen Williams added 2 from 7. I guess when we look at this OKC team, do you think shooting is a big need because of that performance, or do you expect the OKC to sort of have the guys there to clean up in the shooting area?
I again, the NBA is trending towards this 3 point shooting at the moment, so it is an expectation from any team to have elite shooters from beyond the arc. But in saying that, the top three scorers in the league are being effective at the mid range with over 40% of their buckets coming from the mid range. That's your top three in the MVP race that we spoke about. Giannis, Jokic, and SGA. So the mid range when the game gets slowed down is still is important to the game and players find space. But the role players around those stars definitely need to shoot from deep. Like I think SGA just before this game was shooting close to 40%, which is higher than normal for him. But yeah, unfortunately, him being let down by a 3-point shot led is also a contributing factor to them losing, as well as Jalen Williams going 2 for 7 from three as well.
Yeah, and Donovan Mitchell, quiet game. Well, not a quiet game. He just got locked up by the Thunder defense. There was always gonna be one casualty from the Thunder's top NBA defense, and it happens to be Spider, tangled in the web. 11 points, 3 from 16 from the field. Had SGA and Case and Wallace guarding him throughout, which is impressive considering that Alex Caruso is still out with the hip injury. We don't have to wait long until they go at it again for round two. They meet on Friday, NZ time. I guess based on what you saw in round one, Rav, do you have any predictions between what could happen between the Cavs or the Thunder? Any hot takes, or what do you expect from this matchup?
I don't think it's going to be a hot take, but I don't think Evan Mobley and Jared Allen are going to perform at the same level that they did again against the team. So surely Mark Dagnall can come up with a few adjustments for this lineup and see how they match up against the two Twin Towers there. So I'm going to go OKC winning within three. It's going to be still a nail biter. Yeah. Any predictions from your end?
I think OKC, but I think it's going to be a bigger margin. I'm going to go double digits. OKC win. I think their defense is really going to hold at home.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm expecting. So I'm going to go OKC by 11 against
Oh
the
wow.
Cavs. But
Yeah.
yeah, but it's going to be an exciting game nonetheless, and hopefully round two lives up to the expectations of round one, because that was an outstanding matchup. Moving on to the real deal, Bradley Beal. I don't know if that's his nickname. It just sounds right. But I've got a whole list of NBA players in front of me. These are the players in history who have a no trade clause in their contracts. Rav, try and figure out who the odd one out is. We got David Robinson, John Stockton, Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James, Bradley Beal. All those
I'm in the writings there, right?
all those players have in their careers had a no trade clause in their contracts. I don't know how Bradley Beal got to a point where he managed to sort that out, but good on him for doing so.
Got to
He
give
has a
the
lot of
agents some
power.
props too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of power in this league. He's probably one of the more powerful men in the NBA because of that move. And that was signed when he was with Washington. Obviously, got the move over to the Phoenix Suns. That no trade clause is still in effect, and it seems to be the one roadblock that's preventing the Suns from acquiring Jimmy Butler, because that seems to be the easiest like for like trade that you could make if a move was supposed to be made. Do you think Bradley Beal is going to waiver or move on from his no trade clause to allow such a move to happen?
It's really interesting you say that. It's just, I don't think it's a matter of him necessarily wanting, but it's just the team making him really uncomfortable because the team has made it very evident that they don't want him. Like moving a star like him he's coming off the bench now and like just essentially pushing players out. Like, Nurk was pushed to the bench because of locker room tensions. And now Nurk's not even in the rotation anymore. And yeah, I think it was yesterday he had a healthy DNP. So that is potentially the way the Suns are approaching this in terms of pushing Bradley Beal out of this team. But like you said, he is one of the more powerful men in the NBA because of his contract. So he does still hold a lot of power, regardless of what the Suns try to do.
I will say teams have a weird way of telling their players they don't want them. Like Jonathan Kuminga getting the text, the Kings firing Mike Brown via phone call, and now this, but yeah, the big move this week was Beal going to the bench
Mm.
because it's the first time in 9 years that he's come off the bench. Now the Suns are 2-1 since making that switch, and Beal seems to still be contributing with his scoring off the pine. But yeah, I guess the writing's on the wall in that situation where the Suns they want Jimmy Butler. Apparently, Kevin Durant wants Jimmy Butler,
Mm.
according to the reliable source that is Kendrick Perkins. Um, and that apparently the Suns have a contract extension ready for Jimmy, which would in turn lead to KD signing an extension. So
Mm.
if you want to make your superstar player happy, then that's probably the way to do it. Um, I mean, that was our Jimmy Butler sort of mention, but I guess
Mm.
I noticed Jimmy Butler this week throwing a little bit of shade at his boss, Pat Riley. What did you make of that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, just there was a story this morning, and it was in the coffee shop giving a compliment. He says, "I gave you a compliment," and that's what bosses do, and kind of looked at the camera, gave a bit of a thumbs up. But again, yeah, that potentially could be at Pat Riley. We don't know. We're only speculating at this stage. But we know there is a lot of tension between Pat Riley and Jimmy. And Pat Riley has a history of making players unhappy. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this kind of saga unfolds, and we've got just over a month left until the trade deadline. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, for sure. One of these parties is going to have to fold at some point, but it is important that Bradley Beal is the key sort of piece in this whole thing with his no trade clause. It's still funny to me that this list of players and you have Bradley Beal there, so something just doesn't seem right in that regard. In terms of Los Angeles, unfortunately, some wildfires occurring in the area, which has impacted the NBA this week. Sending our prayers out to anyone who has been affected. But the likes of JJ Redick lost his home in the LA fires. Steve Kerr's mother lost her home. Kawhi's had to step back. He just returned for the Clippers, but he's had to step back to help some family affected by the fires. And the Lakers Hornets game that was supposed to be in LA got delayed as a
Mm.
result. So, an unfortunate situation there in LA. But with the Lakers, they did have a game this week. They played the Mavericks, and God, LeBron James at the age of 40, being able to do what he did to Derek Lively, that's insane to me, Rav.
That he's 40. Man, what you and I, what 20, 26, 27. Dude, I wake up sore some days, and I, he's been doing this for nearly how I've been alive. Like that is insane. Like the man's athletic ability is out of this world. Um, Yeah, I was watching the starting five again, and in the starting episode, I think it was LeBron's trainer, and he said he does all these activation exercises, which physios say it's one of the most important things to get the muscles going. So I've been doing that for 21 years, and if that's the way to go, if anyone else is out there listening to wanting to break LeBron's record, so that's one of the things that you got to do. But man, dunking on someone or doing like a what mid game mid dunk switch and dunking on someone who was born after you were drafted, like that is incomprehensible. It is insane. But it doesn't take away from the fact that the Lakers gave up nearly 120, 118 points to this team without Luka and Kyrie. Like that is terrible. That is abysmal. What do you
It's
make of this
terrible
game?
for
Yeah.
it's terrible for the Lakers, but it's great for the Mavs
Mm.
because their depth certainly stepped up. They had been struggling a little bit with Luca gone, and the news this week that Kyrie Irving has a bulging disc in his back, estimated to be out for a couple of weeks. But I fear that it could be a bit longer
Mm.
because those back injuries are really niggly. So the Mavs are doing what they can to step up in the absence of those two guys. Quentin Grimes, Dinwiddie, PJ Washington have all contributed to the side. Do you think the Mavs? I mean, how far do you think this Mavs team can go with the current side that they have? Like, can you see them cracking the top four with Luca and Kyrie out? Do you think they'll stay as a play-in team? Will they drop down as a play-in team? Like, how do you think this Mavs team will go?
I'm actually going to go right in the middle. I don't think they'll drop down to the plane. They'll still be top six, but definitely not a top four at this stage, given both Luka and Kyrie were out. I mean, there was a stretch in this early in the season where Luka was out, but the team was, I think they won 5 or 7 games. That again just shows in terms of the depth that they're having. And yeah, shout out to Jaden Hardy as well. Like yesterday against the Blazers, had a season high 25, and the Mavs went on a 16-0 run to close out that game. But yeah, it just really comes down to who steps up. Like all of these players are good. Like the post-season or preseason acquisitions were really good for the Mavericks, but it's the lack of consistency is what worries me.
Yeah, I think I'll say this about the Mavs though: if it comes playoff time and the Mavs are like a 5 to 8 seed, I wouldn't want to face the Mavs in the playoffs,
No.
particularly if Luka and Kyrie comes back because they've got the
Mm.
experience from last season, and as a team at full strength, they can compete with those top teams in the West, like the Thunder and the Grizzlies and the Rockets. So I definitely would keep an eye on the Mavs as the season goes on. But a big win for the Mavs this week against the Lakers, but still LeBron Duncan insane at what he's doing at his age. The Sacramento Kings obviously down Mike Brown. They moved on from him. Doug Christie, assistant coach, stepped up. They're 5-1 since they fired Mike Brown on a 5-game win streak. So maybe Mike Brown was the problem at the end of the day. Malik Monk, some comments this week that he pretty much said that it's easier to buy in and understand Doug Christie because he played in the league, rather than someone who didn't play in the league, which might have been a bit of a shot there at Mike Brown. Devin Carter, the rookie 13th overall pick, made his debut this week. A really cool moment where his dad, who's an assistant coach for the Grizzlies, was on the other end of the court and managed to see his son play. So that was a cool moment for the Carter family. But he's a guy who the Kings rate really highly because of his defense and his rebounding, and that's key for a team that we've discussed in the past that needs to build a defensive identity of some sort. So having a trio of Carter, Keon Ellis, and Keegan Murray in the future, that bodes well for Sacramento. I do want to ask, because last week you did say if they move on from De'Aaron Fox that they should blow up the whole team. Do you think Sabonis could step up as the franchise guy? Like if they move on from Fox and they have Sabonis as sort of the cornerstone, do you think Sacramento could still compete and build a team around him, or do you think they should just blow it up completely?
No, I 100% agree with that. That kind of reminds me, in a sense, of what AD was doing back when he was in New Orleans. Like, he was that do-it-all guy. He was that cornerstone piece. Like, even, I think it's not necessarily Fox's team. It's more of a duo. Like, this is a dynamic duo in the King space. And Sabonis has been the more consistent player, and we know from following the NBA for a few seasons now that he doesn't get a lot of love and he gets thrown under the carpet just because he's Sabonis and he's from the Kings, unfortunately. But yeah, I definitely think that this has a lot of potential for him to step up as the guy rather than sharing the spotlight.
Yeah, and obviously we know his shortcomings on defense. He's not the greatest defensive big, but I think the guys I mentioned before, Keon Ellis, Keegan Murray, Devin Carter, you surround Sabonis with those sort of defensive stalwarts, then the Kings can definitely compete. But good to see the Kings are finding some form in a new, fresh era under Doug Christie. Another team that's trending in the right direction, the Detroit Pistons. They've won 8 of their last 10. They have a 19-19 record, so they're at 500. Which, if you're Detroit and the seasons you've had in the past, that's probably the equivalent of making the playoffs at this point. And right now they are in playoff contention. I think they're only a game behind the 6th seed. So they're right there. They've shown some improvements under JB Bickerstaff. This time last year, they were 3-35. So that big lengthy losing streak that they had last year was in that early portion of the season. So it's great to see how far they've come. Cade Cunningham has proven that he's all-star worthy. I don't know if he'll end up making the game, but I hope that he does. And those signings of Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris, and Tim Hardaway Jr. have really helped out this Detroit team. Like, they filled the void, filled the need of their shooting and that play on the perimeter. What have you sort of noticed from this Detroit Pistons side? Who's a player who's stood out to you this season?
Just first of all, on the Pistons, I wasn't expecting this at all. Like I think when we were doing the preview, I was like, oh, they're going to go on another 20-game win streak or losing streak or something similar.
Yeah.
But I had them counted out, especially with adding these guys like THJ, Tobias Harris, and Malik Beasley. They are very inconsistent, and they've just gone on a nice little stretch. But it's mostly off the back of Cade Cunningham and also Jaden Ivey. Like they got a nice young big in terms of Jalen Duran as well, and Beef Stew over there, Isaiah Stewart, lurking in the bench. It is a nice team, and one of the guys that I've been really impressed with is Asar Thompson, and just the Thompson twins in general. That's been really good in terms of how these guys have played and shown their versatility both on offense and defense. And I think it was LeBron said in a interview, like post-game interview in the locker room, it's like, these guys' athleticism are out of this world or something similar, which, yes, definitely, like, these guys are unbelievable athletes. Yeah, I mean, I think it was Armin that had 15 and 16 rebounds in back-to-back games in the presence of a big, like, Alpin Şengün. Like, that speaks volumes, like, it's very good to see. But back on the Pistons, man, I had them out. was not expecting this at all.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting 500. I think we were joking when we said that they were going to have another like 20-game losing streak. But because it's Detroit, I think in the back of our minds we thought, oh, there might be some truth in this. But like really, the veteran additions have really helped out Cade Cunningham, because at the end of the day, Cade's your star. You need to surround him with the right players, and Detroit looked to do that in the off season, and it's paying off. So it's unfortunate that Jaden Ivey has suffered his injury, his broken leg, which means that someone is going to have to step up big time to fill in the scoring department. So whether it's one of those veterans, whether it is Asar Thompson or even Ron Holland, who steps up offensively, someone's going to have to help out Cade Cunningham. But great news if you're a Detroit Pistons fan. Great to see them trending upwards in that area. Atlanta Hawks, Trae Young, he's had a great season. The Hawks have been great. I mean, I think they're rounded about 500 or so.
Always mid.
Always mid. But Trae Young, I wouldn't say he's been mid this season. 24 and 20 against the Jazz, including probably one of the best buzzer beaters we've seen in a while, at least. I can't remember the last time someone pulled off a buzzer beater like that from half court, pretty much, Rav.
Yeah, I think I actually was just having a bit of a look around in terms of what are the best buzzer or half court buzzer beaters in recent history in the regular season. Three of them come to mind. Like three of them came up in recent history, which was Jeremy Lamb versus the Raptors. I don't know if you remember that. It was like a loose ball, and Lamb just threw it up in the 2019 season. And then our old mate.
Yes, that's the Lamb one. The one that the trajectory was like real high, and it just took an eternity for it to. Yeah, okay, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
That one. That was a good one.
And then you have Kemba Walker's just reaction to just to storm him in. Is it Eric Collins, the commentator for the Hornets? He goes, "Good golly, Miss Molly!" Yeah, okay, he's there. He's there. Yeah, he was there. That was classic call. Then there was the Tariq Evans one versus the Grizzlies, early 2010s, and the most recent one was the Devontae Graham. That's a bit of a throwback name.
Yeah.
For the Pelicans against the OKC after Shea had that game winner, and then there was all time on the clock, and he turns around and hits a beyond half or three quarters. But okay, let's if you remember those vaguely or vividly enough, where do you reckon Trae's one lands in terms of that top three? Or those three?
Well, I'm trying to think in the context of like which of those buzzer beaters had an impact on the season. Like the Jazz are the Jazz. Like the Jazz are a middling team. Like if he'd pulled off this buzzer beater against one of the top teams like the Celtics or the Knicks, then I'd probably rank it a bit higher. I still think it's high up on my list. I guess my favorite one is the Jeremy Lamb one, just because of the sheer like urgency he had to get that shot up. Like I think, was it a loose ball? He sort of had to recollect, and then he just chucked it up. Okay,
Hail Mary,
because of that, because of the entertainment value, I'd go with the Jeremy Lamb one.
Yeah. Also, the icing on the tech cake was Eric Collins as well.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I'd say the same, man. That was awesome. And that was against the Raptors that won the chip as well.
Oh, was it?
So,
yeah.
2020, pretty sure that was 2019 if my memory serves me right. Um, yeah, I think that's up there, but I think it's probably second, I'd say, over the Tyreek Evans one and the Devontae Graham one, just because Trey just had time to set his feet and made a timely play, and in typical Trey fashion, and hit with the ice Trey celebration. So yeah, no, I think second out of those ones. Just moving on to Trey's 24 and 20, because we could just go on about buzzer beaters for a long time. That was his third game, 2020 game this season. And since John Stockton in 1989, it matches that record. And I think Isaiah Thomas, the Isaiah Thomas, not our Celtics legend, it's the Pistons legend Isaiah Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
has 5 2020 games, and that's the highest ever recorded in a single season. Like with Trey having 3 of these 2020 games, with 37 games into the season, there's 45 left to go. How many do you reckon he'll end up with? Do you reckon he'll beat the IT record?
I reckon he can.
Hmm.
If there's 45 games left in this, it's not even halfway through the season. And Trey, assuming he stays healthy, he's got guys around him this season who can score. Jalen Johnson, I think he's been battling with injury as of late. But when he's healthy, Reese Shea, DeAndre Hunter, when he's got all those guys surrounding him, he can just pass to whoever, and he can easily put up 20 as well. Like he can put up 20 in his sleep. So yeah, I think he gets another 3. I think he'll finish the season with 6. So yeah, that's sort of my view on things.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I reckon he can beat it too. Just at the pace that he's going, and this 2020 game was without Jalen Johnson.
Yeah.
So this is
That's
using
even
the
more
other players
impressive.
in the team. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Moving on, big week for Zion Williamson. He came back to the court this week. Came back from his hamstring injury that's kept him on sidelines for most of the campaign. Came back against the Timberwolves. Vintage Zion with his 360 dunk. He knocked the ball loose from Anthony Edwards and then proceeded to throw down a 360. So it looks like the hamstring is all good. And then he gets suspended for a game for being late to a team flight. On top of that, it's been reported that he has been late multiple times this season to practices. So I guess that all sort of built up to this one game suspension. But
Hmm.
great to have Zion back on the court, at least, even if it was just for that one game.
I think the NBA needs a superstar, like in his caliber and his athletic ability, but with better durability. That's what I gotta say.
The Pelicans need it as well. Like
Hmm.
they're struggling this season. My sort of theory, I guess, is that because the Pelicans are going the way they are this season, I'm sure the Pelicans were thinking, yeah, let's just discipline in one game. Like we're not really competing. Like
Hmm.
if the Pelicans were competing for a playoff spot, I don't think they would have been as strict, or they would have even thought about a suspension at
No.
all. But because the way things have been going this season, with all the injuries, Herb Jones is the latest one to join the injury report with a torn labrum. Yeah, I think the Pelicans felt that, yeah, let's just discipline Zion just for this
Hmm.
one game. So, hey, great to have Zion back, even if it was just for a short return. But he will be back after that one game suspension. So it's great to have Zion back on the hardwood. Second return of All Star voting came back this week. Not many major changes, but I guess the big ones or notable ones is Steph Curry's moved into second in the Western backcourt ahead of Luka. So it looks like Steph could be starting, which would make sense because the game is being hosted by the Golden State Warriors. So it's in San Francisco. So now you have to have Curry starting in that game. And Wemby's moved into fourth in the Western front court ahead of AD, still behind Jokic, yeah, KD and LeBron. Just wanted to ask about LeBron because we didn't really touch on this on the first returns, but LeBron was third in the Western front court players. He was also fifth overall. Are you surprised at all that LeBron, like knowing the people, the types of fans who vote for the All Star game? I feel like it's a lot of casuals would be involved. Are you surprised at all that LeBron isn't getting that many votes, or is this sort of like an indication of the landscape of the league with all these international guys sort of taking over?
I think, yeah, definitely. It is an indication, not just the international guys taking over, but also the fact that it is a passing of the torch season. Like Warriors are struggling, Lakers are struggling, Suns are struggling. Like they're those the big three that their time's coming to an end. So I don't think this is surprising to me. And when you think about like the other names, right, like Jokic is just going to do Jokic's thing. Everybody knows what he does and who he is. And the guys like Victor Wembanyama, like he is going to come up in popularity because of just him, just with his play style, but what he does. Like I don't know, recently he went and played chess in New York City. Like this little
That
bit
was
like
random. That
that
was
was
really
super
random, I
random.
gotta say.
Yeah, but hey, man, like he's for it. Like I think he's a man of the people. He loves a bit of chess, so that's good to see. And those are the types of things that potentially could get casuals involved in the voting as well, because they see that outside of the scope of basketball. So that those are definitely contributing factors.
I'll say this about LaMelo. It
Hmm.
does help when your brothers released one of the hottest hip hop tracks. The timing was just about right. So
Hmm.
I think LaMelo needs to shout out his older brother there. Jason Tatum got third overall in votes tallied, which I thought was quite interesting. Does that surprise you at all that Jason Tatum is among the popular players?
I don't know. No, I don't think that's surprising. He is one of the most popular players. He's got. I mean, he plays for Celtics, one of the biggest franchises in the league. So I don't think that's surprising to me at all. But third,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes about sense. To be honest, I wasn't expecting LaMelo. That's probably the biggest surprise.
Yeah, I think
Mm.
because we hear this whole narrative around Tatum, and um, he can sort of be a little bit cringe with some of the stuff he does. Like when they won the chip last season,
Mm.
he tried to recreate the Kevin Garnett anything is possible
Kobe's.
with his
Yeah.
own, yeah, the whole glazing of Kobe. But I mean, like, yeah, Tatum still is a great player. He's one of the great players in this league. He's one of the durable players in this league. So he's present all the time on the court. So, yeah, great that Jason Tatum is up there. And I guess in terms of the rest of the top 10 from 6th to 10th, we've got Cat, SGA, Wemby, Anthony Davis, and LaMelo Ball, who does look like could be starting in this
Mm.
All Star game just based on the fan votes. Any other observations from you, Rav, before we finally move on to the quick fire to round out
I'm.
things?
I was going to say I'm glad Darius Garland got the recognition that he deserves and is in
Of
the top
course, yeah,
10. Yeah, yeah, that's probably the only thing.
for sure. And yeah, there's going to be a third return of the NBA votes from fans that's going to come out this week. So we'll keep an eye out on that, and from there we should know who's going to be starting, and then I'm sure at some point we'll have our predictions as well as to who will round out the All Star
Hmm.
teams. But yes, as always, we're going to finish things off with the quick fire round. Ravi, let's get stuck into it. You're going to ask the first question, so I'll count you down. Three, two, one. Let's go.
Eli, who will be the next player in the NBA to get a no trade clause in their contract?
Wemby, he's going to follow the Spurs Bigs tradition. David Robinson, Tim Duncan, Wemby's next. Rather, if you add a player in any team with a role player from the 2010s, who would it be?
I'm going to go Jamal Crawford to the Rockets because they need the scoring.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
And yeah, what change would you
What
make to the All Star game?
I would have USA versus the world. Just the way the landscape of the league is, I reckon that would sell. How about you?
I'd go for a 1v1 tournament with a three dribble max.
Nice, nice. And what is your game of the week? I'm just going round two of Cavs Thunder and inject that into my veins. Like I want
Hmm.
another round of that. Okay, cool. Well, that rounds things off. Thanks again, Ralph, for jumping on this podcast, and thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Spotify at These Guys Got Next. But until then, we got next and Matiwa.